As a small business owner, have you ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure of choosing the right hire or leading a team? Or have you ever found yourself tolerating a bad hire because you fear trying and failing again as you repeat the hiring process? If so, you're not alone, and you are in the right place. Welcome to the Growing Your Team podcast. The Growing Your Team podcast teaches business owners like you to expand your unique business by teaching you to master the hiring and team management process. Hiring and managing a team does not have to be a challenge. You just have to learn to do it right. And the Growing Your Team podcast teaches you how to become a confident leader who hires right every single time. Now, let's jump into the show where each episode you will learn tips on how to identify what type of help you need on your team, how to source amazing candidates, how to conduct interviews that lead you to your ideal team member, how to onboard successfully, and how to lead every person in your business so you have a team of rock stars who you are happy to pay every single paycheck. So let's jump in and teach you how to hire like a pro. Hello, Jamie Van Cuyk here, and welcome back to the Growing Your Team podcast. Today, I have on guest Ruth Mannschreck. Dr. Ruth Mannschreck, dentist, business strategist, and founder of Shoreline Strategies, LLC, has over 30 years of experience in private practice. After a life-altering experience with her daughter's NICU stay, she reimagined her business, reducing her hours while boosting revenue. This shift inspired her to develop a streamlined business model centered on efficient systems, high-performing teams, and a thriving company culture. Now, through her transformative programs, Business Lifestyle by Design, and Prep It to Sell, Dr. Ruth helps entrepreneurs build scalable businesses and unlock their full potential, ensuring they sell for maximum value when the time is right. When she's not coaching and mentoring small business owners, Dr. Ruth can be found engrossed in a good book, walking her two dogs, taste testing new wines, or paddleboarding around a lake in northern Michigan. I absolutely loved this conversation with Dr. Ruth, and I hope you will too. We talk a lot about preparing your business for sale, and we really focus this conversation on the team and people aspect of that. While at the end of the day, you might be selling your business for your own personal reasons, we're building teams that we value and love, so we want to make sure that we are leveraging people appropriately within our business while we are running it, and also that we're thinking people first when we do sell, so that way our team members aren't left in this tough spot when new people come in. I also love this conversation because as a business owner, you can apply a lot of these concepts even if selling is not something you're currently thinking about. One of the things that really stood out to me was the fact that I could use these tools, use these ways of strengthening my business internally so I could continue growing my business and being more in that CEO role and pursuing other opportunities like volunteer opportunities, board opportunities, second business opportunities, while still running my business and having my clients served exactly as they are today. So this is a great conversation if you've ever thought, can I step out of my business, whether that is to sell it, and almost any business is sellable if you follow these tips, or step out of my business just to enjoy something else, whether that is more free time, volunteer opportunities, or if you're a serial entrepreneur, that other business idea. So let's jump into the conversation and learn more about how you can prepare your business so it could be sellable and that you can receive maximum value when you do go to sell. Hi, Ruth. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Thanks, Jamie. It's great to be here. I can't wait to speak with your audience.
Yes, I am so excited to dive into today's topic because I feel like it's one we haven't really talked much about on this podcast, but I feel it's so important. But before we do that, can you take a moment and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Ruth Mannschreck, and I've been a dentist for, 37 years now. I started my own practice from scratch, built it up. We had two kids. We had trouble with our daughter when she was born. She had trouble, I should say. She was in a hospital for like 6 weeks. When she came home, she turned our lives upside down. I had to shrink my business down from 5 days a week to 2.5 days a week. So that's how we got started on the path of redesigning our business model. Then, fast forward many, many years, I was in the office one day and the ceiling in my operatory collapsed.
Oh my goodness.
And come to find out, I had to move out of my suite. So I was desperate to find a place. Where am I going to practice? Anyway, long story short, I made some fast decisions, ended up selling my practice, and wasn't prepared to sell my practice. And I think it went very poorly. No fault of the people that bought it. I actually knew them, were friends, but it's all my internal about what is it like to sell the baby that you've been working on your entire career, to sell it and not feel great, not feel good about the price that you got, the way they treated your team, all the different parts of selling your business. And it was very evident to me that many professionals in private practice have the same challenges when it comes to how in the world do I sell this business, especially service-based businesses. How do I sell this to someone else, to a stranger? How do I give them my blood, sweat, and tears, my fabulous team, all the processes I've put together? How do I do that and walk away from the transaction feeling good?
Yeah.
So that's how this all started.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm so excited to dive more into this, what you learned and now how you guide people through this process and your knowledge in this area, because I feel like it's one of those things where sometimes as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we are just so focused on the doing. There are some people out there that create a business
Mhm.
from the start to sell, and that's their initial goal. I know now the business didn't really go far. I was 6 months in and I realized I hated it. But the first business I went to go start, it was a software development company, and that was our goal. It was we build it until we
Mhm.
can sell it. So the goal was always to sell it and always
Uh-huh.
have this thing where you could sell to someone else and have them take it over and have that be really how we made our money from that business. My business I have today, I didn't start it to sell it. I started it because I love what I do. But I'm also like myself right now getting to a point where I know there's many other business owners that are like this, where it's just like, I love what I do, but is this what I want to do the rest of my career? Or is that serial entrepreneur like mindset
Right.
kicking in where it's like I can do something else, I can pivot, I can do something in parallel to this, I can do something
Mhm.
at the same time, I can like having all these ideas, which I think a lot of our entrepreneurs are in that place,
Mhm.
business owners, because we are those idea generators. We're like, ooh, look at this, look at that shiny object,
Yeah.
I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to help this, I want to do that, I have an idea over here. And we get to this point where it's just like, do we just move to that next idea, or do we sell? Do I have something I can sell? Like I put all these years of work into this business.
Mhm.
Is closing the door my only option? But sometimes we build businesses where closing the door is the only option.
Could be, but I think we sell ourselves short, especially women business owners. We don't think um, completely outside the box. For
Yes.
example, I always encourage people, think of the business practices that you have or the service delivery that you have. Is that your baby? Did you create that? Is that intellectual property? Have you protected what you created so that even if you don't sell your entire business, you can sell your intellectual property because it's yours. You can sell it
Mhm.
again and again and again if you want. Doesn't even have to be to one person. So I always encourage people to think strategically about what have you created? how much of it would really help another business owner that you could sell it to, but you want to protect it as your intellectual property first.
Right. Yeah. I know with going through to some conferences and hearing things about
Mm-hmm.
intellectual property, it's always one of those things where I'm just like, I don't quite understand it. It's one of the few business topics I feel like goes over my head, but I'm just like, but I hear all the time, yeah, we have so much value in our business. And I do agree with you, Ruth, that I feel like a lot of times we sell ourselves short, especially when we are the face of the business, the main service
Yeah,
provider. We're always like, what value is my business if I'm not there in my business because there's so much that
exactly.
revolves around me?
Right, right. Um, and I think so, yes, I do have several areas I ask business owners to look at when they're thinking about how am I going to sell my business. And I really encourage people to start this process years before you want to actually sell your business. And I think the first step is to think, what do I want to do? What's in this sale for me? Am I going to sell it so that I can fund my next adventure, so I can go into retirement? Do I want to just be in the practice and not worry about the day-to-day running of it? So I still want to keep using my expertise. What is it that you want? Because so much of the kind of buyer you're going to look for depends on what you want out of the transaction or the phase of your business. What do you want for yourself? Like, what's your next step? Think about, what is retirement going to look like if that's what you want to do? What kind of funding do you need if you're wanting to move on to the next project? Think of yourself as a business owner. It's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You have to find a buyer, not just any old buyer, but a buyer that's just right for you, that has the momentum that you want them to have, that has the money you want them to have, that has the core values you want them to have. Think about all of that before you even start thinking about, how do I attract that right kind of buyer to me?
Ooh, I love what you're saying there, Ruth, because it's really about our core here, growing your team. We always say when it comes to hiring, someone could be good at what they do, just doesn't mean they're right for you. So I think putting
Yeah.
that mindset of who do you want to sell your business to is a fantastic idea because are you selling it off for scraps? Are you selling it off because these people are going to
Yeah.
serve your clients? And if they're going to serve your clients, are they going to be happy? Now of
Hmm.
course you're no longer there and there's going to be that emotional attachment that some of your clients might have because they
Sure.
chose you for all this time, but can they be happy with the person that you're selling your business to? And some answers is going to be yes, and some, if you really dig into it, it's going to be a no, that's not the right person
Hmm.
for my business to take over my clients and processes
Right.
and team.
And probably the next step talks on that very topic is you want to decrease the risk that is present in your business. Every business has some risk attached to it, but in the eyes of a buyer, of a purchaser, there are some areas that really stick out. And what you just mentioned is one of those. If you are the face or the brand of your company, it's going to be really tricky to sell that to somebody else. So then the question is, what do I do? What if I am the face? I don't want to be the face anymore because I do want to sell this. How do I not become the face of my business? Some companies try to change their name, which doesn't always go well. But I encourage people, think about, what are your core values as a business owner? That's really how you have turned your image, your concept of yourself into a company. And many times focusing more on, what does it mean that I'm the face of the company? What does that look like in my vision, in my mission statement, in my core values? And how do those values show up in my team as behaviors? I think when owners decide to do core values, they have great ideas and they come up with 4 or 5 big words and they put them on a plaque and stick them on the wall, and we never talk about them again. It's like
Right.
it was just an exercise and that's it. But if you take those core values and with your team, not just the boss, But with your team, turn those into core behaviors. Like if excellence is one of my core values, it's a big word, can mean a lot of things. But what do we as a team, what do we want that to look like in action?
Right.
And that makes for great team meeting material to go through all your core values and say, what would that core value look like in action? How will people recognize that's one of our core values? The more you can instill those core behaviors in your team, the easier it is for a buyer to believe that your team can carry on without you, because your team understands how you want your business run and what it looks like in action.
Yes. Yeah, I love what you're saying there about the core values, because that's one of the things we ask about when we're trying to define idea candidates. And there are some people that are like, "Wait, I wrote them down somewhere when I worked with a business coach. Let me pull it out." And the
Yep.
first thing I'll say is, "No, no. If you're not
Yes.
living them every day in
Mm-hmm.
your business, I don't care what you wrote down with the business coach because you were forced to
Yeah.
write down values. Like they don't actually mean anything in your
Yes.
business."
Right.
But then I work with other clients that are on the complete opposite side. I work with a lot of clients. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the EOS,
Yeah.
they do have a
Yep.
lot of their EOS coaches, and
Mm-hmm.
those people, they know their core values. They can recite
Yep.
them. They know what it means. It's not just a word. It might be,
Mm-hmm.
they might start with a word, but then they have kind of the definition that comes after it. So they know what it means to show
Mm-hmm.
up that way. And then sometimes I work with people that are in between. They understand their core values, but sometimes they think of their core values is external. How do we show up for the clients? How do
Right.
we do this and how do
Mm-hmm.
we do that? So one of the things that we always do is when someone does have their values, when they list them, we make sure any position that we're hiring for, it's how does this value show up? What does this
Right.
value mean for this role? And because
Right.
sometimes, like, yes, that value is that excellence means putting out excellent products and things like that. You're
Mm-hmm.
known as excellence, but how does this position influence that excellence
Right.
and things like that? And
Perfect.
so, yeah, I love that. Like, you really got to know what your core values are
Mm-hmm.
and not just have them be words, but actually
Right.
know what it means.
Mm-hmm. Other ways that you can decrease risk in your company is to look at your customer, your list of customers. Look at your accounts receivable. If your accounts receivable is too big in one area, if one customer or one niche of a customer generates a large percentage of all of your receivables, that's going to be hard to sell to someone else, because when you leave the company, if that group says, "Oh, I guess we're done too," and walks away, your buyer is sunk. So they're going to want to see a general diversity of both who your customers are, and the other one that we often don't think about is, do you have one producer in your company who produces the bulk of your revenue? Because if that employee walks out the door with you, your buyer's not going to be happy. So when they look at those percentages, they're going to be very intent on, let's make sure somebody walks out the door, I can still make this company work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess I have a question for small businesses. Like if we're talking businesses with really small teams, like what would that kind of look like? Because the business owner might be that top producer, or it could be that they've reached the point where they hire, maybe it is a sales rep that's going out and bringing in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
that business that then someone else is serving inside the business. But sometimes we're just not big enough to have multiple people be that person who is serving clients or bringing in the revenue or things like that.
Right, right. So what I typically find is that it is the owner that is the rainmaker, bringing in the bulk of the revenue. And now is the time, long before you want to sell your company, to make sure you work your way out of that. That is not a good sales position to be in. That really cripples your negotiating with a seller, with a buyer. So I would encourage people to, how can you step back? How can you train someone to take over a big part of what you're doing? Because it's going to cripple you at the
Right.
negotiation
Yeah.
phase, if that
Oh,
makes
yeah. That
sense.
makes sense. It's scary, but it makes complete sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another area that I like for companies, businesses to look at is what is your business's competitive advantage? What are you known for? So let's say like your software company, if you
Mhm.
and another software company in the same area, same revenue generating power, why would a buyer pick your company as opposed to another company that does exactly the same thing you do?
Right.
This because we tend to think that we hope buyers find us when it's time to sell your business, and yet most successful sales that I work with, they end up promoting their business. And this competitive advantage is a huge thing when you're marketing your business to find the right buyer. I encourage you, don't think of we have the best customer service and we have the best quality. Those are severely overused. Everyone says that, but what is it? Are you the first in your industry, in your location, or in your niche? Are you the largest? Are you the most boutique? I love boutiques. Boutiques are more work than most business owners want to do, and therefore there aren't as many of them. So if you were going to all of a sudden, no, what am I going to, I have to come up with a competitive advantage, thinking, how could I make myself a boutique is the easiest to create. And the one that I think does the biggest bang for your buck, because there just aren't that many genuinely boutique industries out there or companies in different industries.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just, thinking of like some of the things that I know is like, because I know obviously we started talking about at the beginning your history and dental practices. Like I'm assuming there's probably more than one that does it, but there's one that I pass all the time with their signage is their appointments are evenings and weekends because people work.
Right,
And
right.
but most offices you go to are Monday through Friday, like 9 to 5 type things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later,
Sure.
select days of the week. But this one, it's like their unique selling proposition is we have
Yeah.
appointments. All our appointments are typically when people are not working
Right,
or when
right.
kids are out of
Mm-hmm.
school.
It's
Yeah.
very attractive, very
Yeah.
attractive. So yeah, it takes a little thought process, but it's important to figure out why would someone pay you or pay you more for your company than the guy next door based on what makes you just a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you are like everyone else in your industry, you're a commodity, and you don't want to be in that category. When a buyer looks at your business, you want them to think boutique, not commodity.
Yeah. Yep. Like one of the things that here at Growing Your Team, because we get asked that question all the time on sales calls, is like what's different than hiring, a different recruiting firm when people want our recruiting services. And the one thing that stands out for us is we do flat fee recruiting. No, you're going to pay us a percentage of
Oh,
what the
mm-hmm.
salary is or things like that. It's flat fee recruiting. You're filling us to do the job and do the job well. And we have like
Mm-hmm.
our guarantee and stuff in there too. But small business owners that we work with love that because then they can properly budget for the recruiting help. They know exactly what they're getting into. A lot of them don't know what the pay is going to be yet for their position. So it's very different if
Mm-hmm.
I tell them the pay is going to be 50,000 versus $100,000 per year. So it's
Right,
like they know exactly what they're getting into. They can see it if it works in their budget before we really define what the salary for
right,
that position is going to be.
right. I love that. That's a great competitive advantage. So it takes a little thought. Have your listeners start thinking about your business. Why? Because we all do this. We start our own company because we want to do things our way. And what does that translate into? Think of it from your customer's perspective, or thinking of it from your team members' perspective. Maybe it's how you run your team or how you support your team as they run your company. That might
Right.
be your competitive advantage, because be advised, you really have to give a buyer a good excuse to keep your team, because so many companies just want to cherry pick your book of business or a certain process that you have, and they couldn't care less what happens to your team. So I encourage people, when you're figuring out your competitive advantage, help your team members be tied to that outcome. so that there's every reason in the world for the new buyer to keep your team members in place.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So I think so. We went through, I think, 1 through 3 of the 4 things
Right,
that you typically talk
right.
about. So what's that
hmm
fourth one?
The fourth one is you want to make your business turnkey easy. If you're a business owner who works 80 hours a week, you're going to have a very hard time selling that business because what you're doing is selling a job. You're not selling a revenue generating machine. You're selling a full-time job. And I got to tell you, most buyers that I know that's not why they're buying another business. Unless you're finding someone who's just starting out and they might agree because they have no choice to work that many hours. But boy, most business buyers aren't looking for a job. They're looking for revenue generation and team, so make things easy, make things set up so that your team, a team run business, that your team can make it happen. It protects your team and it makes your business much more attractive to a potential buyer. Because remember, we're marketing. We have to put our best foot forward. And there's a lot of competition out there for businesses. So many businesses don't get sold. The statistics are horrible. So the best way to make sure you're not in that category of a business that cannot get sold, and there are some that can't, is to just really look at how can you make this simple, easy, profitable for the buyer that you just stand out in comparison to your competition.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that is such a good point, Ruth, because especially when you said like there's a lot of people they're not looking to buy a job. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like who wants to pay for a job unless you're the person that's going to come in and say, okay, I can put in those 80 hours and I know
Mm-hmm.
that within 6 months I can get things running in a way that you didn't.
Right.
And I'm going to be able to be profitable and I can not be
Mm-hmm.
working 80 hours a week. And there are some people who look for those challenges
Sure.
and look for those things. But I feel like you kind of have to have everything else set up where it's just like, okay, we can finish what you started type thing.
Mm-hmm. That
But
really
yeah,
restricts your potential buyers.
yeah,
You're setting aside a huge group of buyers who have money and are looking for a bright, shiny object.
yeah,
But
yeah. Because you think about it, and kind of correct me if I'm wrong here, Ruth, but like with your practice that and everything that you had, people probably weren't just looking at it sometimes to come in and like buy that client list and that location. They're like looking to say, I already maybe have a practice.
mm-hmm.
I'm looking to have then 2 locations. Well, it's one of the things we always talk about is you can't be working 2 locations at once. That's a reason why you need to hire a team. So wouldn't you rather buy, if like you're in the buyer seats, buy
Yeah,
the position, buy the practice that you can just pretty much put your name on the door and it's going to run without you
right.
while you're still, and it's not, you don't have to start that other location from
Mm-hmm.
scratch.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And so here's one more little tidbit about the whole selling process is in many industries, the traditional approach has been that over the weekend, the transaction happens over the weekend. And Monday morning at first team meeting, the owner shows up at the team meeting and says, guess what I did? And that's the first that the team knows, oh, they sold the practice or they sold the business. I think, and I want your listeners to just think about this. What if 10 years ago or 5 years ago, you went to your team and said, I'm going to sell this business. And between now and when I sell it, help me turn this into an amazing money-making machine that is run by you. Help me make you, my team members, so irresistible that nobody would think twice about removing you from the machine that generates cash.
Yeah.
It's not the way brokers look at it right now. But I think so much, especially if your team is important to you, if these are not just team members, they're not just employees, but these are your friends. These are the people you have shared this huge chunk of your life with, and to just willy-nilly say, guess what I did this weekend? And yet that's the way it goes in so many businesses. But wow, what if we worked hard to make our team members an integral part of the sales process? I
Yeah.
think that's a great gift we can give them.
Yeah, I like that. And I like how you phrased it as like making it so no one would think about cutting them because they are so
Yeah.
valuable to the organization. Because I feel like that's one of the things like team members fear, especially that Monday morning
Yep.
you hear about it. It's like,
I know.
oh, my job is probably going to be eliminated. And so it creates a lot of fear. I feel like if you keep your employees engaged in that, they understand
Hmm.
what's going on, they they make themselves very valuable within the organization, you have that much higher morale around it.
Oh, it's so
And
much better. Yep.
yeah, yeah. And then, even I think it's like, I would have to say makes your company more valuable in a lot of ways because then the buyer is not going to think, oh, I'm going to come in and half the team's going to leave because they were so
Hmm.
attached to the old manager or the old boss
Yes,
and
right.
things like that. So one of the, and I'm not saying, every business is going to be able to do this, but I know there was a local business, oh gosh, years ago. It feels like it was just around the corner, but it probably was about 10 years ago, sold. And they sold for a ridiculous amount of money, where the business owners are like, we want to reward our team members for this. And they gave their team members really big bonuses based off
Yeah.
of tenure. And to the point where some people could take the next year off of work if they wanted to. But there was a lot of them
Hmm.
that ended up staying and stuff with the new organization, at
Hmm.
least at first. I don't know long term, but they just felt valued. They felt like they were able to sell this business because of the team that they had, because of all the work that they put
Yeah.
in, and they were then rewarded for it versus just being like, see ya, I hope you like your
Hmm.
new boss.
Yes. And think of the worth and the value that you're showing your team members, that you really do value their place in life, their thought process, their
Yeah.
creativity, all the things they bring happily to you working in your business. This really is a genuine way to say, I want to help you go forward. And the key to success is not me staying in the business, it's all of my team working this great business model we've got and pushing it forward.
Yeah. Before we wrap up today, I want to circle back to one of the early points that you said. And it was talking about finding a buyer that aligns with, kind of your
Hmm.
values and things like that. And I want to say like that is one of the things I think that can make us feel good about the sale because I know a lot of my listeners, a lot of the clients I work with, we are very people focused. So
Hmm.
there is that part of us that's going to feel like, what happens to my team once I'm not in charge? Is someone going to care for them? Is someone going to take care of them like I do? My just like a personal example, my ex-husband, he worked for a company that sold, and his the people that ran it before the sale were very, very people focused. The
Hmm.
people that bought it were very
Oh.
profit focused to the point where people didn't matter, and like it was night and day, and it caused my ex like a lot of stress. And
Mm-hmm.
people just started leaving and everything because they're like, no. And then the company kind of lost a lot of revenue because the people that really mattered to the clients and the organization and actually did things well, that helped generate that revenue
Mm-hmm.
that these buyers were buying the company because of, weren't there anymore. And so, it was like one of those things where it was just like it
Mm-hmm.
created this really chaotic lifestyle at the organization because the people that bought the organization didn't align with the values that were originally
Mm-hmm.
there, and the company was no longer the company that it was, and the company suffered as a part of it, which means the
Mm-hmm.
team members that stayed suffered and everything. So I think finding someone that's a buyer that aligns with the values, especially if you care about your team, is super, super important.
Right. That's a perfect example. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
And I also feel like it's your reputation as well. Like some people, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
hear that you sold it, but there's also this thing that they're always going to connect your name to that business. Like
Yeah.
there are some people, like big names in the business world, that have sold their businesses, but you still think about that person every time that business is named.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
you want to make sure that the people you leave your business with, the people that you sell it to, are not going to tarnish your good name.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Ruth, before we wrap up today, anything else you want to share about preparing your business for sale, especially when it comes to your team?
I want to encourage owners to start early. That's the best thing you can do, is don't wait. You think it's something, oh, when I get old, after I've made enough money, then I'll think about it. But think about it sooner, because it's a bit of work to get it to happen the way you want it to. To be picky about the kind of buyer, you need to do some groundwork first. And I encourage people to bring your team in on that process. Like, don't try to hide it in the woods and not tell anybody about it until the very end. Your team members spend their lives working toward your dream, and I think it's showing respect to your team to bring them in on the process and be upfront and authentic with them. It takes away a lot of the fear and the insecurity
Yeah.
through the process.
Yes, love that, Ruth. All right, how can people get in touch with you?
We put together a free little download. It's like a checklist. It's called, if they go to prepitnow.com, they can download a free little PDF. It talks about the parts that we spoke about today. It's prepitnow.com.
Okay, awesome. So that link will be in the show notes over at growingyourteam.com. All right, Ruth, my final question that I love to ask all my guests. We've all had leaders or managers that have stood out to us. Think of a leader who stood out to you and share one thing about them.
I'm going to say, this might sound silly, but for the huge part of my education, I was a waitress. I worked and I was a trainer in the restaurant industry. So I helped companies open up new restaurants. And I learned so much from my general manager when I was working as front of the house team member. And I almost wish that business owners would have to work in hospitality for just a little while to really see what it's like to learn about hospitality, to learn about appreciation, to learn about customer care, and really straightforward things like how to anticipate what your customers need, how to find things before they ask. Just so many things that we take for granted when we go into restaurants that would really be helpful to business owners if they understood some of the hospitality guidelines. And in fact, one of the books that I love to encourage people to read is called Unreasonable Hospitality. The Remarkable Power of Giving People More Than They Expect. It's a book for the restaurant industry, but it has so many key points in it that absolutely are applicable to any business owner who's running their own business.
Yes, yes, I love that. And of course, I'm drawing a blank right now, but I know just a few episodes ago, oh, I probably maybe even have it in here. Like we had someone that on here specifically talking about hospitality and how like the
Yes.
hospitality lessons and everything and how
Yeah.
to treat your team like you're kind of treating your customers and everything when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
hospitality. So I totally agree. Like, I think we need to focus more on the serving of people, whether it's internal or external,
Yeah.
and a lot of those things that you mentioned, Ruth. So I'll have to go
Mm-hmm.
check out that book.
Yeah. Great.
All right, Ruth, thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I've really appreciated it.
Are you ready to hire a new team member for your business and you want to ensure you hire the person who can succeed in the role, make you happy, and positively impact your bottom line? Then let's talk and see how growing your team can help you master the art of hiring. Through bespoke hiring frameworks and comprehensive guidance, you will learn how to attract candidates who have the passion you desire and the skills needed to succeed. At Growing Your Team, women entrepreneurs and leaders work with us to help them expand their unique businesses by teaching them how to hire like a pro. Let's connect and see how we can help you. Send me an email at jamie@growingyourteam.com. That's Jamie, JAMIE @growingyourteam.com, or head on over to growingyourteam.com/jumpstart, with jumpstart being all one word, and let's talk about how you can become a confident leader who hires right every single time.